Thank you so much again for having me on here, Bridget. It's such an honor to be here. My name is Maya Gharfeh. I'm a local allergist and immunologist at the Oklahoma Allergy and Asthma Clinic. I've been here in Oklahoma City for the past 5 years, long enough to be a Thunder fan, but not long enough to not be scared by the tornado storms that we had last night in London. But it has been such a privilege to work in this community, seeing patients. My special area of interest is in food allergy, and so I do a lot of food allergy treatment and food allergy care in my clinic, but I see patients of all ages, adults and pediatrics, for both food allergy, environmental allergy, asthma, eczema, all the allergy conditions. And I love doing it. A little bit about myself. I am originally from the Buckeye State, so I'm from Ohio, Columbus, Ohio. Moved down to Texas for a few years where I did my allergy training and then practiced in Waco, Texas for a few years before moving up here. My husband is originally from Bartlesville, Oklahoma, and
Okay.
that's why we ended up back up here.
I love
Um,
Bartlesville. Been there many times.
yeah, it's a cute town, very,
It
very cute
is.
town,
Yeah.
cute thing to raise a family for sure. But my area of interest here in social media has just kind of grown over the years. When I first started in my fellowship training, which it's over 10 years now. But when I was a fellow, I started actually a blog on WordPress back in the day. And at that time, it was just kind of my whatever, my little creative outlet. I had a
hmm
really great mentor while I was in residency who was very active back then on Twitter. And he now continues to be very active on other social media outlets. But I kind of saw what he was doing and his voice that he was making in the social media space. And I wanted to be a part of the conversation. And so it started with blogging, started with kind of my take on allergy hot things that were happening in the allergy world that I was seeing during fellowship. And then it just blossomed from there. So as Instagram became more popular, as other social media outlets became more kind of a popular place, not just for posting pictures, but actually for information. Again, I wanted to be a part of that conversation. And really a big piece of it that I see is that information is out there, information about allergy is out there in those spaces. And we, as professionals who are educated in allergy and all of the evidence-based information that is out there, if we stay silent in those platforms, then really we're allowing misinformation to continue to just grow and develop and take hold of minds. And I think we've seen in the past 5 years what the power of what misinformation can do
hmm
to people. And so, though our voices sometimes can get blocked by the algorithm or maybe
Yes.
not as high, we still, I think it's our due diligence for those of us again that are trained in these fields to be involved and
hmm
be a participant and an active voice in it.
Well, I so admire your willingness to step into a digital space, and I share your opinion that we can't sit back and wring our hands about the misinformation online if we don't have the courage to use our own influence and our own voices to, correct it or to spread, some sort of education or message or movement that we're interested in. One of the things that impresses me about the following that you've built is it seems it's not huge yet,
Yeah.
but it seems very engaged, and you've done a really good job of curating a group of people, probably mostly parents, it seems like,
Mhm.
who have a vested interest in the information that you are sharing. And one of the things I noticed about your profile is you say that you are educating worldwide.
Mhm.
And that to me is one of the coolest things about having a digital presence is there's really no barrier or boundary for the influence that we can have. And, how do you feel about someone across the country or across the world being able to interact with your content?
Honestly, I love it. I mean, we talk about nowadays access to care and eliminating barriers as much as possible. Well, I mean, every single person has a phone that they
hmm
carry. Nobody, and this phone is their communication tool, but it is their connection to everything, to the world. And
Hmm.
again, if we want to continue to feed healthy, evidence-based information to the whole community, worldwide and across the street, then this is such a great opportunity to be able to do that. And I often in my exam room, I do a lot of education, maybe a little more than patients want to hear sometimes. But we spend a lot of times talking about the why and the how and why does this make sense and why are we doing this treatment and what makes sense for you with what's going on with you. Because I think one of the most important things is knowledge is power. And
Hmm.
instead of having a paternalistic approach of do this because I said so, it's do this because this is the pathway of what's going on. And then that empowers people, empowers patients to take a really active role in their care. Well, the same
Hmm.
thing, we are able to educate, people that can't get to the office because they don't have transportation, or people that are in, some remote area of Wyoming and there's not an allergist within 2 hours.
Hmm.
So these are the people that it's a privilege and an honor to be able to reach them, and I hope that we're able to continue to do that.
Hmm. I'm curious. I feel a lot of connection with you because I'm similar. I started like my digital presence blogging, over a
Okay.
decade ago. And, being online and building community online is something I feel like that comes pretty naturally to me. And so stepping into this digital space, it doesn't feel like too far-fetched, but there are definitely some tech components
Uh-huh.
that have, you know, held me back. And just recently I've decided, I am going to work through these challenges. I can figure this out. I'm curious, what advice would you have to someone who's hesitant to step in? Not only because it takes some courage, to use your voice in a public way, but also the fear of looking clunky and like the
Yeah.
fear of looking like you're doing it wrong. Has
Well,
that
oh, that
happened for
definitely
you?
come up. Definitely come up. And I think we're probably of the same generation too, where, I think we're both probably in the millennial generation,
Uh-huh.
where we expect things when they're produced to be perfect, right?
Yeah.
We want to make sure that we have executed a really good product
Hmm.
and then we'll put it out there. What I've learned is that on social media, that doesn't have to be the case.
Right.
It can look clunky because we are learning how to do it.
Hmm.
In time, it won't look quite so clunky, but at least we have our voice out there. And the more that our voice is there, the more our presence is there, whether it's, 100 great, perfect reels and content information, or 10 really great ones and 9 subpar ones, or 90
Yeah.
subpar ones, it's still out there. And that information allows that presence, I should say, is really what matters on there. So, I was given the advice before I started doing a little bit more of the content creation that what viewers want to see is someone that's authentic, who's
Yes.
credible, and then who's trustworthy. And so when we show our authenticity through, the typos that will inevitably happen, or
Hmm.
the little mix-ups that will happen, because no, I am not a tech genius here at all. I think that shows, hey, I'm a real person. I'm trying my best to be on here. The point is that I'm on here and that
Right.
I want to be a voice that you hear.
Hmm. What, talk me through some of the decisions that you have made around what platforms you want to be on and what, digital communications are you using? I know that you've done some video, which I've consumed that content. You've done a little bit of writing. Talk me through some of those decision-making processes about, where to be and how you are choosing to connect with people.
So currently the sites that I am most using would be Instagram, and then my videos are on TikTok, but again, as a millennial, elder millennial, not very active on it.
I know I've not bridged the TikTok gap
Yeah,
either, so
it's
maybe
a
to come.
little, it's a different world. But
Hmm.
I like the cleanness of Instagram a little bit more.
Yeah.
But it's, LinkedIn and Twitter, I'm not as active on there, though my videos do go on there. So I've been able to partner with someone who helps me create those videos and then is able to automatically launch those videos through those sites. So that piece of it is nice because it takes a lot of the work off of myself from the
Hmm.
tech aspect of just having someone that helps me kind of upload them and keep the
Yeah.
content rolling. As far as other opportunities, I have done some writing, like you mentioned, some other podcasts and things like that where I've been a guest, but most of it has just been what has naturally kind of come into my lap that I have felt that I agree with kind of the mission and vision of what they're trying to do. Um,
Hmm.
so if it's a product that sometimes some of them have been like an air purifier product that I have worked with. But other ones, if it's a skincare product that I wouldn't necessarily recommend to my patients, I've declined that. So
Yeah.
it's just things like that. If it's something that I feel goes with the my mission and kind of what I believe in, then I will pursue that. But otherwise, I don't. And a big piece of this is a lot of this is not paid. A lot of
Yeah.
this is just on the side. So I also have to balance. I am a mom. I have 3 kids, full-time
Hmm.
job. I have a husband. So, how much can I say yes to while also
Yeah.
still being actively involved with my family?
Well, yeah, well, let's talk about that a little bit. How do you create some margin to create content? And for me, the creation of the content doesn't always take quite as long as the ideation.
Yeah.
Sometimes I really will spend a few days with an idea thinking about, is this worth sharing? And what medium should I use to communicate it best? How do you create margin for that? Is it something that you enjoy? Is it something that you have to create discipline around, force yourself to sit down and think about? What's that like for you?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know that I have it nailed down yet, truthfully.
Yeah.
I think ideally, if I can carve out a few hours a week on a weekend, that would be great. But
Hmm.
3 young kids that are pretty active, some weekends don't allow for
Yeah.
that too. So it's a lot of putting it in there, kind of like this interview, putting it in there weeks ahead of time, telling myself this has to happen, so prepare for it,
Hmm.
be ready for it. But otherwise I know it may not happen if I don't schedule it ahead of time too.
Yeah. Well, like I've mentioned, I really admire you putting yourself out there and working towards this goal of using your expertise to educate on a really important topic. I will share one of the things that inspired me to start using my online presence a little bit more is I actually heard a nutritionist interviewed on a podcast, and she was very candid saying, this is not what I was trained to do. I was not trained to sit across from a reporter or a media person and communicate about my work. And yet I'm here because there is so much misinformation about nutrition science. And I'm here on behalf of my work and the work of my colleagues to share our research and, to sit here as a real person, talk about research that we're proud of and that we believe in. But I'm not a trained communicator. This is not, what I got my training in.
Right.
And so it inspired me to be more bold, on my social media and to offer what I can, to help encourage people to show some resources and to just be vulnerable and show myself kind of fumbling and
Yeah.
being clunky
Yeah.
and um, that it's okay. It's okay to come here without like a perfectly polished, version of yourself. So I'm just curious, have you had this conversation with your colleagues about, folks in the medical profession or with science backgrounds having to turn into much better communicators in a way that you maybe did not plan to when you were getting your medical training?
Yeah, so yes and no. Yeah, so like my colleagues that I'm involved on social media with who are also participating in this platform, we've had those
Mm-hmm.
conversations, where this is just we're just trying to figure it out, trying to fit it into our lives, but we know it's an important space. Another thing to recognize is it's also is met with its challenges in that sometimes it's not met with open arms.
Yep.
Sometimes you are met with those people that come back with uh, a lot of negative comments
For their own narratives, their
or their own
own,
narrative. That's
ideas.
right.
Yeah.
That's right. Thankfully, I haven't seen a whole lot of that personally, but that can weigh you down also as you're trying to do this and as you're trying to put yourself out there. So I think some of the physicians and my colleagues that are involved in this space have felt that almost that burnout of we're doing this, but why? We're
Mm-hmm.
doing this and is it making a difference? But
Mm-hmm.
the truth is, I really think we are. It's just being consistent with it.
Mm-hmm.
And then, my colleagues that I work with at the clinic, a lot of them, I think a lot of them are probably more in the camp of being intimidated still by it.
Mm-hmm.
But I try to encourage them as much as possible. It's not a hard thing to jump into. And they're all such bright physicians and nurse
Mm-hmm.
practitioners that I work with, that their voice is wonderful, and I encourage them to continue to make their voices heard. I feel very honored at our clinic to work with some really excellent physicians. And I think a lot of time because marketing is different now than it was back then.
Mm-hmm.
Back then it was fine to just kind of have word of mouth and then physician referrals, and that's
Mm-hmm.
fine. But we're doing more in our practice now with social media, and just putting the faces of our physicians out there on our own websites because really truly they are all wonderful physicians.
Mm-hmm. What are some of your goals for your own digital presence and visibility over the next few years? What do you hope to achieve?
My biggest goal is just continued growth and continued presence on there. It would be wonderful to continue to see. So I actually ended up starting my own network that is separate from any kind of social media platform.
I've seen that. Yeah.
Yes, the Allergist Mama Network. So I
Yes.
would love for that to continue to grow. Again, that takes me kind of being disciplined and creating time to do that.
Mm-hmm.
But I would love to see that space grow where I have active members in that are receiving courses on specific areas of allergy, or even just have the opportunity to ask questions and have kind of expert consultation, question and answer time too.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd love to see that presence grow in the next few years.
Yeah. What a hopeful service, if you're dealing with a really challenging allergy issue with a child, to have direct access to an expert who you trust. I could
Yeah.
see that being so helpful during some scary moments when you're trying to weed through a lot of information
Yeah.
online.
Yeah. And I mean, I have to be careful without seeing the patient personally as my own. I
Right.
can't give personal advice, but again, I can direct them to specific information, evidence-based information, that pertains to their condition. And
Hmm.
I hope again that knowledge continues to empower them as they continue to seek care, whether it is with me, because some of them are my own patients, or
Hmm.
with their own allergist too.
Well, I would love to help anyone who's watching today be able to find you. Do you want to share your handle on Instagram and wherever else so that folks can track you down?
Yeah, so it's very easy. It's Allergist Mama. So Allergist, ALLERGIST MAMA. And I look forward to engaging and meeting all of you that are whether parents or caregivers of those that have allergies, or suffer with it yourself.
Hmm. And I just want to encourage, real life experts and community leaders to use their voices online in a positive way and really just kind of rethink. about the influence that you can possibly have both in our community and like you worldwide. Be-
Yeah.
Um, okay, well, thank you so much for being with me. I think